There is a kind of time loss that does not show up on a calendar. It is not the hour you spend waiting in traffic. It is not the afternoon you lose to errands. It is not even the years you spent working harder than you wanted to. It is the time your mind spends revisiting what has already happened, preparing for reactions that may never come, explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand, and postponing your own life until everyone around you feels comfortable. After 50, time begins to feel different. Not because life suddenly becomes smaller, but because you become more aware of what your attention costs. You begin to notice that some emotional habits have been quietly consuming entire mornings, relationships, decisions, and sometimes years. These patterns often look responsible from the outside. They can look like kindness, patience, loyalty, caution, or maturity, but underneath, they may be keeping you emotionally occupied with everything except your own life. Here are 7 emotional patterns that quietly steal your time after 50 and what begins to change when you finally recognize them. 1. Replaying conversations that have already ended. The conversation may have lasted 10 minutes, but you carry it for 3 days. You remember the exact expression on the other person's face. You replay your answer. You imagine what you should have said. You wonder whether you sounded weak, rude, foolish, selfish, or too emotional. Then your mind creates alternate versions. In one version, you defend yourself more clearly. In another, you remain completely calm. In another, the other person finally understands your point and admits that you were right. But none of these conversations are happening. Your body is sitting at home, driving to work, washing dishes, or trying to sleep. Your mind is still inside a room you already left. This pattern often develops in people who learned that social safety depended on getting things exactly right. They became skilled at examining tone, wording, facial expressions, and possible meanings. That sensitivity may once have helped you avoid conflict, but later in life, it can turn every uncomfortable interaction into a private investigation. The hidden cost is not only stress, it is absence. You are not fully present in the life happening now, because part of you is still trying to repair a moment that is already over. A more useful question is not, what should I have said? It is, there anything I still need to do? Perhaps you need to apologize. Perhaps you need to clarify something. Perhaps you need to set a boundary. But if there is no action to take, then continuing the conversation alone in your mind will not create closure. Closure sometimes begins when you stop demanding a different ending from the past. 2. Managing other people's emotions before they even react. Some people do not simply make decisions. They first imagine how everyone else will feel about those decisions before saying no. They picture disappointment before changing plans. They prepare for anger before expressing an opinion. They soften it, edit it, and surround it with explanations. Before choosing themselves, they calculate the emotional cost to everyone nearby. This can become so automatic that you no longer recognize it as a pattern. You call it being considerate, and consideration is valuable. But consideration becomes self-abandonment when another person's possible discomfort automatically matters more than your actual limits. You may spend hours preparing to say something simple. I cannot help this weekend. I do not want to attend. I need more time. This no longer works for me. The sentence itself takes 10 seconds. The emotional preparation can take days. What are you really trying to prevent? Often, it is not conflict itself. It is the feeling that comes when someone is unhappy with you. For many adults, especially those who spent years being dependable, helpful, or emotionally steady, another person's disappointment feels like evidence of personal failure. But disappointment is not always damage. Sometimes, people are disappointed because they did not get what they wanted. That does not automatically mean you did something wrong. You can communicate with care without taking responsibility for every reaction. Other adults are allowed to have feelings about your choices, and you are allowed to make those choices anyway. 3. Explaining yourself to people who benefit from misunderstanding you. There is a difference between someone who does not understand you and someone who does not want to understand you. The first person may ask questions. They may disagree, but they remain curious. The second person keeps moving the standard. You explain your decision, and they question your motive. You explain your motive, and they criticize your timing. You explain the timing, and they bring up something you did 10 years ago. You keep believing that one more explanation will finally make your position acceptable. But the problem may not be your explanation. The problem may be that your boundary inconveniences them. Some people understand you perfectly. They simply do not agree that you should be allowed to change. So they keep you trapped in a courtroom where you are both the defendant and the lawyer, constantly presenting evidence that your needs are reasonable. This can consume enormous amounts of emotional time. You rewrite messages, you prepare examples, you search for softer words, you imagine future arguments, and each time you explain, again, you quietly send yourself a message. My decision is not valid until this person approves of it. A decision can be thoughtful, kind, and necessary, even when someone dislikes it. You do not need to make every boundary emotionally comfortable for the person who benefited from your lack of one. Sometimes clarity sounds like this: I understand. That you see it differently. And then you stop speaking. Not because you have nothing more to say, but because you have realized that your life cannot remain on hold until everyone agrees with you. 4. Waiting to feel completely certain. Many people lose time not because they make the wrong decision, but because they wait for a level of certainty that life rarely provides. They want to know that the new direction will work. They want proof that leaving is better than staying. They want reassurance that they will not regret the choice. They want to feel confident before they act, so they remain in the same job, relationship, routine, or identity while waiting for fear to disappear. But fear often does not disappear. Before change, it changes after movement begins. Certainty can become a respectable form of avoidance. It sounds intelligent. I am still thinking. I need more information. I am waiting for the right time. I do not want to be impulsive. And sometimes patience is wise. But there is a point when thinking is no longer producing new understanding. It is only delaying the emotional discomfort of choosing. After 50, this pattern becomes especially expensive because every delayed decision is also a decision about time, another year in the same situation is not neutral. It is another year. You do not need total certainty. You need enough honesty to identify the next reasonable step, not the entire future, just the next step. Make the call, ask the question, take the class. Change the routine, have the conversation, spend one afternoon exploring the possibility you keep dismissing. A meaningful life is not built by people who always knew exactly what would happen. It is often built by people who were willing to move while part of them was still uncertain. 5. Keeping an old role alive, because other people still expect it. Families and relationships often assign roles without formally discussing them. One person becomes the responsible one, another becomes the peacemaker, someone becomes the helper, the listener, the strong one, the successful one, or the person who never needs anything. At first, the role may feel meaningful. It gives you identity. It gives you belonging. It tells you how to be valuable. But roles can outlive the version of you who created them. You may no longer want to solve every crisis. You may no longer have the energy to organize every gathering, answer every call, absorb every complaint, or remain calm while everyone else falls apart. But the people around You may continue relating to the older version of you, and because they expect that person, you keep performing the role, not because it still fits, because changing it would force everyone to adjust. This is where years can disappear. You continue being who you have always been, because other people have built their comfort around your consistency. But your history is not a contract. You are allowed to become less available. You are allowed to become more honest. You are allowed to need support after decades of providing it. You are allowed to stop being the emotional structure, holding everything together. When you change a role, people may accuse you of changing. They are correct. The question is not whether you are changing. The question is whether the old role is still costing you more than it gives you. Maturity is not remaining permanently loyal to every version of yourself. Sometimes maturity is recognizing when a role has completed its purpose. 6. Treating guilt as proof that you are doing something wrong. Guilt is powerful because it feels like a moral warning. It tells you to go back, call them, say yes, apologize, change your mind, make everyone comfortable again. But guilt does not always mean you have violated your values. Sometimes guilt simply means you have violated a pattern. If you have spent 30 years saying yes, saying no may feel cruel. If you have always explained yourself, silence may feel disrespectful. If you have always been available, protecting your time may feel selfish. The feeling is real, but the conclusion may be false. You can feel guilty while making a healthy decision. That is one of the most important emotional lessons of adulthood. Guilt often appears when your behavior changes faster than your identity. You have set the boundary, but you still think of yourself as the person who never disappoints anyone. You have chosen rest, but you still believe valuable people should always be productive. You have stepped away, but you still believe loyalty means unlimited access. So the old identity reacts. It says, "This is not who we are." And perhaps that is true. Perhaps you are becoming someone different. Instead of asking, "Do I feel guilty?" ask, "Have I actually done something harmful? Was I dishonest? Was I deliberately cruel? Did I violate a responsibility I freely accepted? Or did I simply make a decision that another person did not like?" You do not have to obey every uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes guilt is not a stop sign. It is the emotional soreness that comes from using a boundary you have rarely exercised. 7. Postponing your real life until no one will be disappointed. This may be the most expensive pattern of all. It is the belief that you can eventually create a life that feels like yours without upsetting anyone who preferred the older version. So you wait. You wait for the children to need you, lest you wait for work to become calmer. You wait for your partner to understand. You wait for your family to approve. You wait for the perfect moment when your change will not create inconvenience, confusion, disappointment, or judgment. But that moment rarely arrives, because every meaningful change alters something. When you protect your time, someone receives less of it. When you stop playing a role, someone loses access to that role. When you begin expressing preferences, someone may call you difficult. When you choose a different direction, someone may feel left behind. Many people do not consciously decide to give their life away. They postpone themselves in small, reasonable-looking increments. One more year, one more obligation, one more season of keeping the peace, one more attempt to make everyone understand, and then they look back and realize they were always preparing to live, but rarely living implemented its purpose. The goal is not to become careless about other people. The goal is to stop requiring universal approval before you become honest. You can love people and still disappoint them. You can be grateful for your past and still choose something different. You can care about another person's feelings without making those feelings the final authority over your future. Ask yourself, what part of my life am I postponing because I am waiting for permission that may never come? Do not immediately search for a dramatic answer. It may be something small, a quiet morning that belongs to you, a class you keep postponing, a conversation you need to have, a friendship you have outgrown, a room you want to change, a plan that has lived in your mind for years. Your life does not always return to you through one enormous decision. Sometimes it returns through small choices that stop requiring an audience. After 50, protecting your time is not only about becoming more efficient, it is about becoming more honest about where your life is actually going. The patterns that steal your time are often not loud. They look like thinking, helping, waiting, explaining, hoping, and trying to keep everyone comfortable. But once you see them, you begin to notice how much of your attention has been living outside of you. You cannot recover every hour already spent, but you can stop donating the next one automatically. You can leave an old conversation in the past. You can allow someone to be disappointed. You can stop explaining. You can move without certainty. You can release a role. You can feel guilt without surrendering to it. And you can begin building a life that does not require everyone else's permission. Which of these 7 patterns has taken the most time from you? Share your answer in the comments. Your experience may help someone else recognize what they have been carrying. Subscribe to Inner Life Decoded for more.com. Thoughtful explorations of the psychology behind what you feel, do, and repeat. Your time is not only something you spend, it is the material your life is made of.